Hello, today I want to talk to you about false friends. What is a false friend? Here the dictionary tells us that a false friend is a person who seems to be a friend, but who in fact cannot be trusted. So a false friend is the opposite of a true friend, right? But we're going to follow actually the second sense, which is the meaning is a word in a foreign language that looks similar to a word in your own language, but has a different meaning, right? The example they give you here is the word sensible. The word sensible in English means sensato, in español, no sensible, right? So the appearance of the word is what is deceptive. And remember that last time when we did the video on analogy, we talked about deception and being deceived on the appearance of something. And that is very common in English. Remember, we saw in another video the use of expressions like for all and something awful that look one thing but are not. Now, this is not just something that happens to us. I wanted to show you this happens here as well. By the way, Merriam-Webster does not list false friend, right? And if you look up false and then you will not get the entry for a false friend, and if you look up friend, you won't get the entry for a false friend either, right? But then I want to show you something here. In English, they have a problem with the difference between imply and infer. Let me just tell you that we are here looking at the Guardian of the Observer style guide, right? And what is the problem these people have with imply and infer? They seem to confuse these two words, right? And here they explain to you that to imply is to suggest, whereas to infer is to conclude. And to help us understand that, there's a quote from a famous TV show where Homer says, "What are you inferring?" Lisa says, "I'm not inferring anything. You infer, I imply." And Homer says, "Well, that's a relief." Many people use infer when they mean imply, and they are in good company. Milton, Sir Walter Scott, and Mervyn Peake in Titus Groan all did it, right? So they're trying to say, okay, in English, this is very common. But why? Why would they confuse these two words? Well, basically because these words imply and infer are Latinate words, right? The words of Latin origin, and they do not see through them the way we do, right? Sorry, let's go back. So, what are you inferring? Uno no diría en castellano que estás infiriendo, sino en todo caso, ¿qué estás tratando de decir? ¿Qué es lo que estás implicando? Y por eso Lisa le explica, vos haces una inferencia y yo implico, en realidad no decimos implico, doy a entender algo. But for us, this is not a problem. And I wanted to show you actually that the opposite happens to us. If I tell you the word baffle, you will be a bit confused. But if I tell you it means confused, then you won't be confused, right? And the same happens if you look at the word belittle. That's not a transparent word for you. But if I tell you that belittle means to make someone feel unimportant, the word unimportant is very clear for Spanish speakers. And the same happens with befuddled, which means also confused. And confused is a word that is clear in Spanish. Unremarkable too. Unremarkable is not transparent in Spanish. But if I tell you it means ordinary, then it is. Now, be careful, because all of these words are words of Anglo-Saxon origin. Unremarkable, baffle, belittle, befuddle, right? And these words are not transparent for Spanish speakers. But if I use the others, they will be. But be careful, because if I give you the word ordinary and I look it up in Spanish, okay, como un regular y que sucede habitualmente, pero vasto, vulgar, de poca estimación, perdón, que no tiene grado de distinción, sabemos que en castellano el término ordinario tiene una connotación negativa muy importante. Quiere decir que tenemos que tener mucho cuidado con esas palabras que se parecen, pero que no son lo que parecen. For this, I am going to give you now a list of, not a list, a couple of words that are false friends that should not be translated into words in Spanish that are similar to them. And the first one is vocational. Vocational means connected with the skills, knowledge that you need to have in order to do a particular job. So that's why we have vocational education, qualifications, and training. Now, you do know this word vocational, and it looks similar to vocacional, porque ustedes hacen un curso de orientación vocacional. Cuando terminan la escuela tienen que decidir qué van a estudiar. But clearly, though vocational is related to something related to education, it is not un curso de orientación vocacional que me dicen que quiero estudiar. Quite the contrary, vocational training is the type of training that gives people the skills and knowledge to do a particular job. So you have vocational courses in art, in accountancy, right? So a vocational course is more like formación profesional, un curso práctico, cualquier otra cosa, pero no es orientación vocacional. Orientación vocacional en inglés is career guidance. This article is so important. I mean, this explanation, because look at the length, right? They're different. It has different meanings in Scotland, right? And also in the US. So tread carefully with vocational. The next term I want to show you is convenient. We tend to think that it means conveniente, right? And in a way you could say that convenient is conveniente, right? Útil, oportuno, provechoso. And when we check here, convenient, useful, easy, or quick to do, okay, no problem. But what happens when it means near to a particular place? And I say, the typical collocations are that your office is convenient, right? That the house is convenient for the shops. It means proximity. Entonces ese conveniente no significa conveniente, sorry, ese convenient no es conveniente, sino simplemente cerca. And that's the reason why in English we have what we call the convenience store, right? Que es el negocio de al lado, right? El supermercado o el almacén de al lado. All right, let's go to the next one, which is residential. Residential se parece mucho a residencial. Ah, se me escapó. Esperen. Y si buscamos residencial, está bien, es un área urbana, pero destinada principalmente a viviendas de calidad, whereas in English, residential has to do with a place suitable for living, right, where houses are rather than factories or offices. Clearly, that's a huge difference between Spanish and English. I remember quite well, that's why the next word is utility. Several years ago, utility is another false friend, by the way. It's a service, lo que nosotros llamamos el servicio de gas, de electricidad y de agua. And there was a time when the gas supply was a privatized utility, and the service was cut off, and the head was an Englishman, by the way, and he said, don't worry, the service will be restored for residential areas. Y la traducción de la intérprete fue, el servicio volverá a funcionar en las zonas residenciales. Quería decir que en realidad los únicos que iban a tener gas eran los barrios pitucos, no el resto de los mortales. Huge problem, right? Now, the next one is liberal. Liberal is a word that usually lends to confusion in terms of being a person who is open to understand. That's not a problem. Sorry, an open person in various areas, right? In his attitudes or views or opinions. It has also a political meaning. In Argentina, this can lead to confusion, and also in the US and in Great Britain, because this word may have slightly different meanings in these two countries. In Argentina, it reminds us of un partido político, so the differences are many, but actually want to check this meaning: generous, liberal with something. It means lavish. So when you say she's very liberal with her money, that means that she gives a lot of money away. I think Sam is too liberal with his criticism. Simply, this means that he criticizes people too much. So as you can see, these words are not meant to be translated on the face of them, right? You're not supposed to translate them just as they are. And I would like to say that this is a very contested issue, and I believe that's why you need here to see the next word, which is, contest. This is an aside, right? But the many words in English that shift the stress when they turn from a noun to a verb, right? The functional shift is perceived through the stress. So a contest, but the verb is to contest. See the stress here, right? And the same happens with other words very quickly. Let's go to, we got to latinate. Wait, disruptive. Yeah, that's all. I didn't get all the others, but I will tell you the others. The others are the many popular words in the on this list, like increase, an increase, to increase, an import, to import, a record, to record, a permit, to permit, a conflict, to conflict, right? Well, let's go back. I wanted to tell you that this is a very contested topic, right? Because on many occasions, people refuse to accept that we're using a false friend and the word is being used correctly, right? Another minor digression here is that all of these words we're talking about are words that we call Latinate, right? That is to say, words of Latin origin, right? The ones that are transparent for Spanish speakers. And the result is very disruptive. I wanted you to check out the word disruptive, and disruptive means causing problems, right? And we have been using this word a lot in Spanish lately. Right? Pero que dice que produce disrupción. Ojo, que se utiliza en la lengua científica, y si busco disrupción me va a decir una rotura o interrupción brusca, que no es como lo estamos usando en castellano. Por ejemplo, últimamente se habla mucho de un niño disruptivo en la escuela, que básicamente significa que se porta mal, pero para no decir que se porta mal, empezamos a utilizar la palabra disruptive, right? Which is the word that we use in English, right? Disruptive here. So we speak of disruptive weather, disruptive behavior, right? And that's how we're beginning to use it in Spanish. Lo que estoy tratando de decir es que cuando se trata de falsos amigos, en algunos casos nos rehusamos a aceptar que se trata de un falso amigo, que estamos copiando una palabra en inglés al español y que en realidad el uso normal de esa palabra en español no era así. Esto es un problema bastante complejo, but I'm going to leave you with many other words that we have been using incorrectly in Spanish through a poor translation of an English word of Latin origin. Other words, apart from the ones I gave you, like vocational, convenient, residential, and liberal, there's also denounce, que no es denunciar, pero desafortunadamente si la buscamos acá en el Cambridge Dictionary, que es Spanish English, me va a decir denunciar. Pero acá me está diciendo que denounce es criticar. Criticar no es denunciar. Son cosas completamente diferentes. Agony is another false friend. Onerous, insult, parsimonious, notorious, apparent, adequate. All of these words are false friends. And when you translate them literally, we say, uno dice, en vez de por adequate, uno dice adecuado, cuando en realidad se trata de suficiente, we are changing the meaning, and that is what we need to bear in mind, right? So tread carefully with false friends. So remember that this is a problem and we need to tread carefully. That's all. Bye.